Okay, everyone, it is the day before the 2018 NBA draft, so I thought I'd throw together a little mock draft for you. I like to change things up a little bit. Usually you kind of hear the same old rumors on every mock draft you see, and most of them are garbage. So I'm going to throw out a few things today that hopefully make some sense to you guys, but I'd like to hear your feedback in the comments about it, and let me know what you think. So we'll start off right off the bat with the Phoenix Suns. Seems like a pretty obvious choice. They're going to go with DeAndre Ayton. A lot of people talk about Doncic here and how it makes sense that, you know, the new coach for Phoenix was his national team coach. I don't know. What does that really matter? The matter of the fact is, DeAndre Ayton is a 7-footer. He's a monster in the paint, and he can hit three-pointers. Everybody compares him to David Robinson. I don't think we can quite call him that because, you know, he hasn't established himself defensively to that degree. But the fact that he can hit three-pointers already, and that he already has the body he has at 19, the guy has pretty high hopes to become a legend in the NBA. So that's a no-brainer in my mind. Second pick, we go to Sacramento. I've gone back and forth with this. For a while I had Michael Porter Jr. in this spot, but I think there's just too many questions around Michael Porter Jr.'s injury, and the fact that it keeps kind of coming and going. You know, people think he's healthy, and then he's canceling workouts, and then he's coming back and doing the workouts, and then he's not giving his medical records to teams. And I think Sacramento ultimately comes down to the decision. When you look at the roster, who's at the 3 right now? Justin Jackson. You know, he's an average player at best. You've got guys at the 4 and the 5. You've got Giles, you've got Labissiere, you've got Cauley Stein. Granted, at the 2 and 3 you have Hield, and then you have Bogdanovich, but I think Doncic is going to be your best overall player. I think I've thought about Bagley here too, because Bagley seems to be the only one that's kind of embraced Sacramento as a potential fit for himself. You know, you've heard things about Doncic withholding things from Sacramento as well. But I think if they do that, they still kind of have that hole at the 3 spot. Doncic can fill that hole and round out their roster. So I think they roll the dice there and they stick with Doncic. Third pick, Atlanta Hawks. Now, not many people have Bamba here. Most people have, you know, Jaren Jackson, some of the other guys, or Doncic, assuming Bagley would go number 2. I think this one seems to make a lot of sense. Atlanta's new coach, you know, he kind of came in with the expectation that they're going to embrace defense. Bamba is a huge piece to a team defense. To have him in the middle with his wingspan, you know, he makes me think so much of Dikembe Mutombo. The fact that he's so young. And again, kind of like Ayton with David Robinson, this guy's like Mutombo with a 3-point shot. That's pretty exciting to think about. Plus, he fills an obvious hole there too. To go along with Prince on the wing. You still don't really know what's going on with Schroeder, whether he's going to be there or not. And then you have Collins at the 4. So it seems to make good sense. The only other option here, I think, would be Jaren Jackson Jr., because he kind of can offset what John Collins brings to the table. The fact that he's an inside defender and he can hit the 3, that kind of balances out John Collins. Versus Bagley, I don't see how that fits with Collins. You got 2 bouncy, kind of in-between players at the 4 and 5 there. So we go with Mo Bamba at number 3. Now, number 4. This might seem like a bit of a shocker here. But what I'm suggesting here, Memphis is, or other mocks have been saying all along that Memphis, they want to build on to the veterans that they already have, and they don't want to go too young. So that, in addition to the fact that they have Chandler Parsons' awful contract, this is the first trade that I have projected here. So Memphis would send this 4th pick along with Chandler Parsons to Phoenix for Phoenix's 2nd rounder, number 31, along with Ty Warren and Jared Dudley to even out the salary number for Parsons. That might seem like a little steep for Phoenix, but I think it gets them what they want. They've been kind of talking about getting Trae Young to pair with Devin Booker. It's kind of an intriguing idea to think of Trae Young along with Devin Booker, along with Josh Jackson, along with Bender and Chris, along with DeAndre Ayton for a core to build around. Plus they have another first-round pick later in the draft. So, I don't know. Trae Young's been sliding in a lot of drafts these last couple days here, but I think this is probably Phoenix's best opportunity to lock him up, because you don't really know how far he's going to fall. Once it gets to 6 in the draft, you don't know. I mean, Orlando could take him, Chicago could take him, Cleveland could, New York could, Philadelphia could, Charlotte could. Any of those teams could take a point guard, potentially. So I think Phoenix goes for it. It's not too much to swallow. Yeah, you lose Warren, but the fact that you're bringing in these other 2 guys and you still have Josh Jackson on your team, Warren becomes expendable. Dudley they've been looking to get rid of anyways, and that makes sense for Memphis. They get their 3-point shooter, and they get Warren and a scorer that can play either forward position to kind of take Parsons' place. So I think it works for both teams. Number 5, Dallas. Now this is a tough one. I thought a lot about Marvin Bagley here. Just thinking Dallas, Mark Cuban. Cuban's going to go for the guy that he thinks is going to be a superstar, which I think Bagley makes a lot of sense there. And in the modern NBA, I think Cuban is progressive enough to think that Bagley ultimately can be a center in the NBA, to kind of play smaller with Barnes at the 4, Wes Matthews at the 3, and then Dennis Smith and whoever else, whether it be Barea or whoever else ends up being there. But I think Carlisle's going to like the idea that Jaren Jackson's a big-time shot blocker, and I think we haven't seen half of what Jaren Jackson can do offensively. Yeah, he's not quite as athletic or bouncy as Marvin Bagley is, but the fact that he can get that 3-point shot up, I think Dallas still has some potential there on their team too. You don't really know what's going on with some of their other big guys there. They might be able to fill that other 4 or 5 spot to go next to Jackson. And obviously you still have Dirk. So we'll move on to number 6. Orlando Magic. I struggled with this one a little while too. I was trying to figure out a trade where the Magic would trade with the Knicks. Some kind of package built around Fournier and Courtney Lee. But nothing really seemed to make sense there. And I think Orlando, kind of the same as Phoenix, Orlando's not going to want to pass up the opportunity to take a franchise-type point guard. So I think that they go ahead and they take Colin Sexton here. He's immediately going to take over their team. This is another place where I kind of struggle with Marvin Bagley. If they're undecided on Aaron Gordon, or if they're thinking Aaron Gordon's going to walk in free agency, then Marvin Bagley obviously makes more sense here. but I think they'd be fools not to consider keeping Aaron Gordon around. When you take that into consideration, along with the fact that they still have Jonathan Isaac, who's kind of their one budding star, or could be star, you got to keep those guys around at the forward spots. You don't want to overcrowd it again in Orlando at the big man spot. So you take Colin Sexton. He can be your playmaker from the point. On to pick 7. These Chicago guys are going to be happy. All I hear about all the time is how Chicago wants Michael Porter Jr. Well, there you go. He's there at number 7. Same thing here. Bagley is still available. This is kind of shocking for this mock draft, but it makes no sense for him to go next to Markkanen. Unless something changes and they think Markkanen can ultimately play center. I don't see that happening. Not in the NBA anyways. So you don't want to get another guy like Bagley in there to make things confusing in Chicago. Michael Porter Jr. fits at the 3. He becomes a go-to scorer in Chicago. Hopefully he's healthy. We go from there. Number 8, Cleveland. Cleveland becomes the luckiest team of the draft here and gets Marvin Bagley all the way at number 8. Which might make things very interesting, whether they make this pick or it becomes, wow, Marvin Bagley's still available, and all of a sudden they start getting off-the-wall offers. Obviously, we're talking about the whole LeBron situation. Whether he's going to stay or not is a huge question mark. And who knows, maybe LeBron would love the idea of having Bagley around, and that's enough to make him stay. Otherwise, you got all these crazy rumors how maybe Kawhi Leonard somehow gets to Cleveland. I don't know. I don't buy any of that. I don't see any of that happening. In fact, I think it's more likely that LeBron would end up in San Antonio than Kawhi in Cleveland. But I don't know. It would make for an interesting offseason if Cleveland ends up getting Marvin Bagley. Kind of a cool mock here. Oh, let's see. We're on to number 9. Number 9, this is a tough call. I think Mikal Bridges was here quite a few times in a lot of mock drafts I saw. New York's a tough one because obviously Porzingis is their guy. Who knows if he's going to play this year? So they kind of, if I'm New York, you got Fizdale in there now. Fizdale wants to have a tough culture. You're not necessarily drafting for this year. You're kind of drafting guys hoping that by next year you can pull a team together. But this year Fizdale will establish that tough culture. Miles Bridges seems like the perfect guy to do it. He can be kind of that temporary guy to kind of take over that team until Porzingis gets back. I think he's underrated. His potential is underrated. He's got that fierce nature. He kind of reminds me of Russell Westbrook in that sense. So I'll be really excited to see what kind of professional Miles Bridges can turn into. But he makes sense for New York. He can plug in at the 3 and 4 spots, depending on what happens with Porzingis. A lot of people projected Wendell Carter or other big guys to New York. I don't see how that makes sense. I think eventually New York's going to slide Porzingis to the center spot, especially after his injuries. Who knows? He might be a step slower and might have to play there. So Miles Bridges makes a lot of sense to me. Now we move on to 10, Philadelphia. This is going to be another kind of shocker for some people. Philadelphia, you've heard rumors that they're trying to move up. I kind of threw this curveball in there out of nowhere. This is my second projected trade. I have Philadelphia trading this pick along with their 26th pick, along with their 39th pick, along with Jared Bayless and Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, all to the Toronto Raptors for DeMar DeRozan. You've heard the rumors that Toronto wants to try to get into the top 10. They love this Shai Gilgeous-Alexander guy. Who knows if he'll even be there at 10, but in this draft he is. So it's kind of an interesting idea, you know. In the playoffs, you heard a lot of criticism over DeMar DeRozan and how Toronto might need to kind of blow things up a little bit. Well, this works well for both teams. Toronto gets out from under DeRozan's 27 million a year or whatever for the next 3-4 years. So they get out from under that contract, and in return they get three draft picks. 3 picks in the top 39 of this draft. Plus they get Bayless, who's a reliable, you know, backup guard shooter, and Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, who has a lot of potential, just hasn't had the opportunity to show that in Philadelphia. I mean, he potentially could become your replacement to DeRozan. I know that's kind of a stretch, but it at least has a chance of happening, and it gives Philadelphia their go-to scorer that everybody's saying Philadelphia needs. They need a top-tier player. Well, there you go. You got DeRozan, and if he doesn't work out, they can get rid of him just in time to have to give big extensions to all these guys, Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz and all those guys. So, kind of I think it's a cool trade. It makes a lot of sense in my eyes. So, let's see what you guys think about that. On to pick 11, Charlotte. Charlotte, I just heard today, traded Dwight Howard for Timofey Mozgov. What in the world is Mitch Kupchak doing? Doesn't make any sense to me to get 2 second-round picks. I mean, I've got to the point where Dwight Howard just must be a complete just piece of trash, because teams are just giving him away for nothing. And it's not even just giving him away. To have to take on Timofey Mozgov for 2 more years. I mean, I get it, I guess, if Charlotte has decided 2 more years before we can do anything, so why not take him back? But I feel like Dwight Howard as an expiring contract is a much bigger asset as an expiring contract. They could have done a lot more with that than to have to take back Mozgov for 2 years and only get some second rounders in return. Crazy to me. So anyways, 11th pick, they take Mikal Bridges, best guy there. I think he can help reestablish a young core. You know, you have Malik Monk there. I think Charlotte needs to start thinking beyond Kemba Walker, Batum, Marvin Williams, all those guys. They traded Howard. Now they got to try to find homes for the rest of these guys. But Bridges makes me think a lot of Chris Middleton. I think he's going to turn out to be that kind of a player. So that's a solid core piece for Charlotte to kind of restart with. Let's move on to 12 and 13. Wendell Carter falls down to 12 here. Gets a lot of comparisons to Al Horford. I like that comparison. You know, he's not terribly athletic, but he gets the job done. He doesn't have many downfalls in his game. So it makes sense for the Clippers. I think they're kind of on that patient plan here. They're going to be terrible this year. I'm assuming DeAndre Jordan declines his offer. That'll put Wendell Carter right in there at the 5 right away. So makes a lot of sense. Gives them a gap filler until they can go max contract hunting next year. So that I like that pick. Okay, 13, Lonnie Walker. Lonnie Walker, I think, is one of the most underrated players in this draft. He's kind of a goofy guy. If you watch his interviews, I don't know, he's just a little different, but I think he's got he makes me think a lot of Baron Davis. He's just, I don't know, he can do a little bit of everything. I think he's going to be a pretty solid NBA player. Plus, I mean, the Clippers, they need everything. I don't know if any of those guys are going to come back. DeAndre Jordan, Austin Rivers, essentially. That's another thing. A lot of, you've been hearing trade rumors about the Clippers because they have 2 picks, and every one of those trade rumors include Tobias Harris. I'm sorry, but when you trade away Blake Griffin, Tobias Harris is the one guy you got back in that deal. So some of these rumors I'm hearing that they're going to trade Tobias Harris with 12 to move up to 4 or something. That makes 0 sense to me. Tobias Harris, from what I can tell, is the guy that they want to start over with. And then, they can add, 2 more max contracts to that to become a big-time player next year or the year after this coming year. So, I don't know. Like I say, some of these rumors just make 0 sense to me. They're fun things to talk about, I guess. And they make sense in a simple sense, but I don't know. Okay, number 14. We're on to Denver. You've heard a lot that Denver wants to get rid of this pick and try to get rid of either Fareed or Daryl Arthur to try to dump some salary. So this one is really a tough pick to project for me, because I don't know if Denver's making it or if they traded it to somebody. But Aaron Holiday, I think, makes sense in either position. Denver, Devin Harris was their backup point guard last year. They need another point guard. Aaron Holiday would fit perfect. If somebody else trades for the pick, Aaron Holiday at this point, I think, is a quality value. So I think he could go here regardless if it's Denver or not. 15 on to Washington. There's been a lot of rumors that Washington wants to trade their pick too, but I think, Marcin Gortat is done after this year. He has said that he's going to retire when his contract is up, and I know they've been trying to shop him too. So I think Washington gets to this point, and if Robert Williams is there, they say, well, we kind of have to take him because there's not much left in terms of centers. Unless you want to go after that Mitchell Robinson guy and wait 2-3 years before he can develop into what you want him to be. Washington, they're kind of in a bind. I think they need to win now. If not, unless it's already too late, Robert Williams, I think, could actually help them this year versus anyone else in the field. They're going to wait. They're going to have to wait a couple years. 16, Phoenix. I mean, Kevin Knox in this mock draft, he's still there. I think this is a no-brainer for Phoenix. Like I say, in my projected trades, now you have Trae Young, Devin Booker, Josh Jackson, Bender and Chris at the 4 and Ayton at the 5. You can add Knox in as a potential 3 and 4 fill-in guy. He has superstar potential. I personally think I don't think he has the attitude to succeed in the NBA. I don't know. He just seems negative. Anytime he's getting feedback when he messes up, he just doesn't seem to be too positive about it. I don't really like that in players, so see what happens there. But it seems to make sense for Phoenix. 17, I'm a Milwaukee Bucks fan. Live in Wisconsin. Gotta love the Bucks. This guy, good Lord, I don't know, makes me think of Shawn Kemp in a guard's body. The guy just has a knack for finding the ball. I think that could help him out a lot. Considering what's available at this point in the draft, you're starting to get down there. The big part is the guy can hit threes in addition to his athletic ability. If you haven't watched videos of this guy yet, look up some highlight videos of this guy. You will be amazed. San Antonio, Jerome Robinson. This guy has San Antonio Spurs written all over him, from what I can tell. He's a silky scorer. He's a leader on the team. He doesn't do anything bad. He can hit threes. He can penetrate. It seems to make a lot of sense for San Antonio. Whether or not they keep Kawhi Leonard, this guy makes a lot of sense because he can come in at the 2 now, the 2 or the 3 really. He can play. He can handle the ball and play some point guard, which I think will work well with DeJounte Murray too. So I think that's a no-brainer. If he's there at 18, San Antonio will take him. 19, the Hawks. Going back to kind of the defensive mindset with the Mo Bamba pick, I think they take Jacob Evans here. This guy seems like a great team player, has a great attitude, tough defender. He can hit shots. Good all-around player. I think he'll be in the league. He'll be in the league for a long time. I don't think he'll ever blow up, but he'll be in the league a long time. Starter potential, I think. On to 20. Chandler Hutchison makes a lot of sense for Minnesota. Jamal Crawford opted out this year. I don't really know who they... I mean, I think... who's their shooting power forward? Oh, I can't think of his name, but I think he's a restricted free agent this year. They got nobody on the bench. So, I mean, this guy can play a couple positions. He's big enough to play 2, 3, 4 potentially. He can score. I think he'll fit in well with Thibodeau. Makes good sense for Minnesota. 21, Utah. This is Eli Okobo. I think I'm saying that right. I think makes good sense for them. They have Ricky Rubio. This guy potentially could take that spot. This is kind of seems like a good redo option for them with the whole Dante Exum experiment. I don't know if they'll bring Exum back or not, but this guy has a shot at least. So obviously Utah needs to look at their power forward position depending on what they do with Derek Favors, but we all know that NBA is getting smaller and smaller. It seems like Joe Ingles, Jay Crowder, I mean, all those guys can play power forward. They're new Royce O'Neal guy. So I don't think it's pertinent that they get a power forward. Okobo makes a lot of sense because he can hit the 3. Good all-around player. Okay, on to 22, Chicago. So Chicago's still looking for a center. They have Lopez. He can cover this year. The rest of the guys on the team, sure, I mean, they can do the job, but this guy's got potential. I think they take a stab at him to pair with Michael Porter Jr. as their 2 rookies. That's not a half-bad rookie class, considering this guy had such huge potential before all of his drama with college, how he went there and then he left and whatever ended up happening. I'm sure you guys have watched enough videos and mock drafts to know that his story has a million red flags in it. It would make me want to stay away from him. But at 22, I think Chicago pulls the trigger on that, on the off chance that he can be as good as Ayton or Bagley, because that would be fascinating to throw him on that Chicago team. If he became that kind of 5 to go with Markkanen and Porter Jr. and Dunn and Levine and Valentine off the bench, that'd be pretty scary. Okay, 23, Indiana, Kevin Huerter. This guy's kind of your all-around smart player, good shooter. He's got a badass name. It makes good sense for Indiana, depending on what they do with Big Dog Jr. If they sign him or not. Maybe if Huerter falls to him, it makes it a lot easier for them to let Big Dog Jr. go. I think he'll fit into that system. Really, Indiana's only question mark is the whole Thaddeus Young player option. I don't know if it necessarily would kill their team if he left. But I'm sure they can figure something out in free agency. They got some flexibility there, too. It wouldn't surprise me if he did opt out. It wouldn't surprise me if he re-signed with Indiana. So, Herter makes sense there. 24. I've got another trade here. So 24, Portland. We've heard a ton about Portland trying to redo their roster this year, but their roster is god-awful. So good luck finding anyone to take any of your terrible contracts, Portland. However, Charlotte, we were talking about them earlier, how they just traded Dwight Howard. They need to try to find ways to dump some of these other contracts, Kidd Gilchrist, Williams, Batum. So this is my proposal here, is that Portland sends this pick along with Mo Harkless and Myers Leonard for Nicholas Batum. So Batum comes back to Portland to fill in at the 3 spot. Kind of an intriguing setup there with Lillard, McCollum, and Batum now to go along with, assuming you re-sign Nurkic, and then whoever your 4 ends up being, whether it's Aminu or Ed Davis, or who else do they have? Zach Collins. I actually have high hopes for Zach Collins. But I don't know. I think that makes sense. It sucks for Portland because they get deeper in with contracts, but it's an adjustment at least. Charlotte, they cut Batum's 3rd year out for 2 guys with 2 more years of contracts. It kind of lines up with that Mozgov contract. So 2 more years of terrible team, but at least you have some kind of lineup where a bunch of guys come off your books. Because then they could wipe Harkless and Leonard, each make like $10.5 million. Mozgov, what does he make? Like $16 million. So they'd have another $30-40 million coming off that year. In addition to Marvin Williams, he's another 15, I think, that gets done that year. I can't remember if Kidd Gilchrist is that year too or not, but whatever, you see what I'm getting at. Anyways, Charlotte, I think, takes DeAnthony Melton here. Seems a little goofy because they already have Malik Monk, and then I had them drafting Mikal Bridges at 11. So now you add another wing player in there. I don't know if it's the best decision, but at this point it's about stocking young talent. They have 2 years to figure it out, essentially. So I like this guy. I think this guy has a lot of potential. I don't know. He just kind of seems like he can do a little bit of everything. It makes me think a little bit of Tyreek Evans. Little better version of O.J. Mayo. Probably just because he went to USC. But I don't know. That seems like a good value pick at 24 for Charlotte. That's the thing too. There are some big guys they could look at, but they have so many big guys on that team. Even after trading Dwight Howard, they still have Cody Zeller, Frank Kaminsky, Hernan Gomez, which his season should be interesting now that they got rid of Dwight Howard. Hernan Gomez might end up being the starter on that team. That could be interesting. So, all right, we will move on to 25. The Lakers, Dante DiVincenzo. I think this makes sense just because who the hell knows what's going on with the Lakers? This guy seems like the best value at 25. He can pretty much go to any team and be a little spurt scorer off the bench. I don't think he'll ever be a starter in the NBA, but I could see him kind of being that Lou Williams type of a player for anyone. So, makes good sense. Even if they can't use him, I would imagine they can trade him for someone else once their roster kind of fills out with, whoever it ends up being. LeBron and DeMarcus Cousins. That's the other funny thing. It blows my mind, all these rumors. The Lakers are going to get LeBron, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, come on. How does that make any sense? Who is LeBron going to play center? If they get all those guys, Randall's gone. They're going to go get Zaza Pachulia from Golden State, play him at center. I don't know. I don't get that. I think if I had to guess, Paul George stays in Oklahoma City. I could see LeBron coming to LA and he'll bring DeMarcus Cousins with him. That would make a lot more sense for that team. But who am I? All right. 26. This is Philadelphia's pick, but it got sent to Toronto in my proposed deal. I think they take this Josh Okogie from Georgia Tech, gives them another athletic wing to kind of fill that void created by DeRozan in the trade. I saw something, I think, on Bleacher Report that they're shopping Norman Powell now. Yeah, good luck with that. I don't know. I still have high hopes for Norman Powell. He just got screwed with how they changed their offensive scheme this year. So it'd be interesting, though, if DeRozan's gone, Powell, if he can get 30 minutes, he's going to produce. So the question is whether or not that will fit in with, you know, what Lowry and Ibaka and all the rest of the guys are doing. 27, Boston. Mo Wagner. I picked Mo Wagner here only because you look at Boston's team and you try to figure out what are they going to lose next year. They're going to lose their centers, Monroe and oh God, what's his name? The other big guy with red hair. You know who I'm talking about. Anyways, he's a free agent. I don't know if they're gonna want to pay to bring any of those guys back, because they're gonna have some monster tax bills here. So Mo Wagner, I think, can fill that role. Obviously, he's not as big and strong, but I think he could get there. It makes sense for them. That's like the one thing that they need on that roster is another big guy or two, due to free agency this year. 28, Golden State. Bruce Brown, you know, this guy was projected as a lottery pick potentially last year, they said. I think he fits right into that, much like Ian Clark was on Golden State. You know, he can be that guy to come off the bench and do some damage. So, makes a lot of sense there. High upside for number 28 overall. 29, Brooklyn. This kind of seems like a long shot, but I was looking at Brooklyn's roster. Now, granted, they just got Dwight Howard, but quite frankly, I don't know if Dwight Howard's going to make it through the season on that Brooklyn team. I could see where they end up trading him again, or they just buy him out, because I think he's a chemistry menace. But who knows what'll happen. So anyways, I have them taking, I don't even know how to say his name, Chimizi Medu? I don't know. I haven't watched USC, so I don't even know how to say his name, but seems like it makes sense. They have AC and I don't know, all their power forward center guys are all free agents this year. So they got to fill that slot somewhere. Whether they go grab somebody. Brooklyn's always sneaky though. They always manage to find somebody in trades. So this could be a wild card. We'll move on to 30. Anthony Simmons to the Hawks. I think it makes sense. Guy that's got a ton of potential. Atlanta has the time to be patient and give this kid a chance. Who knows if he'll be good? He seems to have a good demeanor. I'd like to think he has a lot of potential. And if they end up dealing Schroeder, you never know. This guy could be the next go-to guy on Atlanta. So it makes sense for the last pick in the first draft or the first round to take a chance on the guy and see what he can do in Atlanta. So that's all I got for you for the first round. We're already at 40 minutes, so I don't know. I was thinking maybe I'd do second round, but this is pretty long. I'm gonna try to post this, see what you guys think. Let me know. I can't wait to read your criticisms of me. All right, guys. Happy drafting tomorrow.